This Choircast podcast is brought to you by my book, Unless a Seed Falls to the Ground, Welcoming the Death of the Whiteness Gospel. I wrote this story as a plea for white Christian America to enter into a season of hospice spirituality to recover from the cancerous lie that we can start over, be in charge, and recover some original purity of Christianity. One friend calls it a love story to the church, the United States, and the entire human family. It's available now on Amazon.
Hey, heathens, you're listening to the Deadly Faith Podcast where religion and crime collide. I'm Lacey.
And I'm Lola.
And this shit is shocking.
The mind that was in Jesus, that mind is in me.
Without me, life has no meaning.
Why would God tell you what I'm thinking and tell you what I've said to my wife or my husband when you're not around? It's because I'm the pastor of the church and I need to know.
This is the only place where you can see truth.
The shocked gasp.
Everyone, grab your pearls. Okay.
Before you get into this, Lacey, we have a message from one of our sponsors, Fiverr. So when I first started making the logo for Deadly Faith, I can do stuff on paper. It's fine. But making a digital logo, that's just out of my wheelhouse. So if you need help in the creative space, give Fiverr a shot. They offer a range of services, including graphic design, digital marketing, video editing, programming, and much more. That's who we use to make ours, and it's amazing, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. We use it on all of our fucking merch. Like, it's amazing. So you'll love all of their affordable prices and a diverse pool of top-notch talent. And they have quick turnaround times. Join millions of satisfied customers and visit Fiverr today through the link in the show notes. Make your vision a reality. Now back to the show.
Okay, so today we're talking about Timothy Tillman. Okay, the TT. We're talking about the TT. No, okay, and moving on because that just got awkward.
No,
Trigger
I'm sorry.
warnings.
Before trigger warnings, though, do you know the sound on TikTok that's like, I can't stop looking at her face?
No, I do not.
That's what I'm thinking of with the T words.
That's hilarious. No, I have not heard that sound. I'm not on TikTok very much, honestly. Okay. I get on and it's another creator's getting canceled. There's drama and my stress level is going through the roof.
You know, people want to hear from you, though. They want to hear from you.
I do know that. And I've been told so many times, like, can you just come back on and start making content? And I'm like, my mental health is hanging on by a string. And I can't handle it.
White men microphones.
Yeah, I just can't handle it right now. And with being in school, it's just
understandable.
It's a lot. So I just avoid social media.
I got
And instead, I'm learning about the body for the time being. And that's the season of life I'm in. But I'm here to talk to you about murder because to me, that's less stressful.
Okay. Trigger warnings?
I don't know why. Trigger warnings. Talking about murder today. It's not graphic. And then we're also going to be talking about sexual assault a little bit. There's a little bit of like con man, deceiver stuff going on in here.
Trickery.
Some trickery. Yeah, I remember you used that one. We got some tomfoolery. I forgot you used that word as our trigger warning. I like that one. Let's keep using that one. So trigger warning, trickery.
It's good.
In multitude of ways. Okay. Yeah, it is good. So you ready for this story?
I'm ready. I have my little mushroom pen and my little squishmallow thing you gave me. I'm ready.
Okay. Here we go. In 2003, Timothy Tillman arrived in Alabama with his wife, Janet, and two young children. Yes, Jessica and Tiffany were in Alabama. So they were a devout Christian family, and Timothy had been a preacher from Florida to Minnesota and was now hoping to land a preaching job here in Vincent, Alabama, which is only about an hour south of where Lola lives.
Yes.
I Googled it. And I was like, oh, it's just not that far. So luck would have it. And in early 2005, Timothy landed the pastoral position at the Vincent Revival Center. Now,
can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of church is this?
I think it's a branch of the Assemblies of God because prior to them guest preaching at Vincent Revival, he and his wife were attending an Assemblies of God church. And so I think it was within that denomination.
Anything with revival in it makes me think of Assembly of God, Church of God.
Yeah. So that's what I'm guessing. It wasn't like outright said, but I kind of put the pieces together.
Okay.
So many congregants said that Timothy was the best speaker from the pulpit, and he had a way of just being able to work the crowd. He knew how to do it. Came natural to him. He was known for his charisma, and many said that he inspired people to just keep coming to church. And so the pews were getting full and people were enjoying it. And so it was a good deal. There were even more congregants that said that they looked up to Tim as their mentor. Timothy, I'm going to call him both in this whole thing. Same person.
Timothy.
I didn't even think about that once when I was taking these notes.
There's so many little audio anecdotes that I keep putting in here.
Yes,
anyway.
you do. I like them, though. I like them. So they looked up to Tim as their mentor and felt like they had all won the lottery when it came to being able to hire him as their new pastor. So it was like, Tim, we struck gold. This is amazing. Tim,
Tim, win.
Yep.
Win, Tim.
At the end of each service, Pastor Tim made it a point to stand at the back of the church, and he would shake each person's hand or give them a hug as they walked out. Many took this opportunity to, pour their praises over Pastor Tim and tell him how much they loved the sermon or how much it meant to him or to them. They just, and he ate that shit up.
Gross.
He ate that shit up.
I'm
He was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Oh, me?
That's called idolatry, by the way. If you're a churchgoer, that's literally called idolatry.
Yeah, I'm not even going to play here and try to cover this up. We fucking hate Tim, okay? We know that going into this. We fucking hate Tim.
I didn't sense a good vibe with the
no, I didn't.
Man.
Mm-mm. So, yeah, he's loving all of the praise. He wants it all. Okay. Well, now on top of Timothy being a phenomenal pastor, his wife, Janet, she was even better. She was seen as a kind and loving and dedicated wife and mother. She put everybody above herself and was always stepping in to help wherever she was needed. One elder said that, quote, she was the perfect preacher's wife, and others stated that it was her who actually made Tim look good. Now, I just have to say that the comment about her being the quote, perfect preacher's wife, it just gave me the ick.
I was going to say, what does that mean?
Because they were she was kind, she was obedient, she was always putting herself behind everybody else. She's putting,
so she was falling on her sword.
Exactly. So that makes a good preacher's wife. Oh,
that's what tends to happen in most Christian women's circles. Is you're told needlessly fall on your sword. It's honorable. It's what makes you what is it?
Oh, the Proverbs 31 woman?
31 woman, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. You must put yourself lower. You must be abused. You must be lesser in every way in order to have salvation or be considered a good Christian wife. How disgusting is that?
And it makes me, I think what really rubbed me the wrong way with this is that these people who said these quotes, they had already gone through this entire case. They know exactly what happens. This was at the end of everything. Trial, conviction, everything. And they're still saying stuff like this instead of stopping and looking at, could they have prevented this? No, they couldn't have prevented shit. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that she was, as a pastor's wife, as a good Christian woman, she put up with what she shouldn't have had to put up with.
So they couldn't reframe their perspective afterward to take into consideration the facts. And
can we put women into a position where they feel if this is happening in their marriage, especially in a Christian marriage, there is a doorway out. You do not have to suffer. That is not your job to suffer. Yeah. God does not want you to suffer in this marriage. He is okay with you walking away. And I know that that's not okay in some religions. And that really fucking sucks when people are stuck in these marriages because their religion says, you can't divorce. So, and I'm not saying this was one of them, but
I think God's more loving than that.
Exactly. I agree.
If there's going to be a God, there's got to be a more loving one than that. Otherwise, can't tell me jack shit. Mm-mm.
So in 2005, it was just after Hurricane Katrina had hit, and Pastor Tim came up with the idea of having a turkey shoot as a fundraiser in order to raise funds for the victims of the hurricane. So on October 26, 2005, they held their turkey shoot that was a pay per shell type event. They had 3 shotguns that they were working with, and if somebody wanted to join in, they would pay for their shell, pick it up, take it over to the person who was in charge and manning the guns. They would then be given a shotgun. They would load their bullet into it, the participant would, take the gun over, take their shot, and then they would take the gun back to the person that was in charge and handling the firearms.
What's a turkey? Sorry.
Turkey shoot?
Is it actual turkeys?
No. I think...
Is it like clay pigeons? What is it?
Okay, so a turkey shoot is not normally like an actual real
a marksman's
turkey
contest.
Exactly. I think that would call that like a turkey hunt. So it's more like a like you take your shot, you're aiming at like a target, like a target shot type thing. Yes, because clay birds are actually like moving targets. So I wouldn't think it would be a clay bird shoot.
Okay,
I would think an actual.
I'm
like,
just
paper target is what I'm thinking.
Also, kind of weird to utilize guns in a Christian fundraiser. Anyway, moving on.
Oh, girl, we're in the South, so it's not shocking.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
guns
we're in the
for
South in
God.
America. Yeah, fucking seriously. There is a there is a pastor who has a church here somewhere. I think it's in Tennessee. And I cannot think of the name of it, but I'm not fucking kidding. He has made himself a crown that he wears every Sunday. His sermons are posted live on YouTube, and it's like AK-47 bullets. A crown. Like, I'm not fucking kidding.
That's sacrilegious.
And he's fucking serious.
That's past the point of heresy. Like,
yeah.
It's disrespect. That's disrespectful. Come on.
It's really bad. Anyways.
Wait, before we move on, I have to say one thing. When I lived in Tennessee, I went to this one Church of Christ, and one of their bulletin things with the activities listed, one of them said Chainsaw Chapel. And it was an event where you would go chop down trees. I don't know. You like pay to do it. And it was a fundraising deal kind of thing. And I was like, Chainsaw Chapel.
It's giving Jason. Or like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's what it's giving. Why do we have to name it Chainsaw Chapel? I just feel like you're about to go mutilate and destroy a chapel with chainsaws.
They also had a Guns for God thing, and it was a gun auction.
Yeah.
So they were really into that. Anyway, moving on.
Anyways.
Back to your story.
Whatever floats your boat there, buds. So at the end of the turkey shoot, one of the shotguns ended up jamming, and one of the congregants offered to take it to get fixed. But Pastor Tim said that he wanted to keep all the guns together for safety reasons. So him and Janet loaded them up into his truck and then drove them over to the parsonage, which was not far away from the actual church and where they were holding the turkey shoot. You could actually see the parsonage from the church. It was literally that close. So when they got to the house, Janet helped Tim unload the guns and carried them upstairs. His plan was to store the guns underneath one of the beds, and so Janet walked up into the room first, and Pastor Tim followed behind her. As he walked into the room, he said that one of the shotguns bumped the door frame and somehow went off. The shot ended up hitting Janet square in the back and was only 3 feet away from her at the time of the shooting. Now, Tim freaks out and runs over to Janet, but there was nothing he could do. And as Janet lay there dying in Tim's arms, she's telling him how much she loves him and the kids. And it was just devastating. Now, someone did call for help, but Janet bled out before they could arrive to help and offer aid. Now, for those that are listening, and because you can't see her, the entire time I'm telling this, from the moment I said the shotgun hit the side of the door,
I'm shaking my head.
She's been shaking her head the entire time. Nope, abso-fucking-lutely not.
Remember when we first started the podcast, we knew nothing about guns. I know more about guns. I'm not an expert, but I know more about them now.
We've educated ourselves a little. So
this does not compute. This is not realistic.
Yeah. Back at the church, congregants are gathering to begin their evening or afternoon service. And they notice when they look over that they see cops and an ambulance outside the parsonage. So they all quickly migrate over to figure out what the heck was going on. And all of them were shocked and devastated to find out about the tragic accident and Janet's death. Members said that when they came over, they saw Tim just completely distraught with his head in his hands saying, "What have I done? What have I done?" Another member, Sue, who was an elder of the church, went in and loved on the girls as they sat there just sobbing, uncontrollably sobbing into her.
They had kids? Tell me again.
Yes. I think
how many kids?
Jessica and Tiffany are their 2 kids.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 2 girls. Yeah, so they are uncontrollably sobbing into Sue. After a little while, the girls went over to Sue's home to spend the night, but Tim had to go in and be interviewed down at the police station. Now, many were upset about this because he had just experienced a heartbreaking tragedy.
Same. Words are hard.
Words are hard, okay?
This is protocol, though.
Exactly. And he was being forced to go down to the police station. But like you said, it's protocol.
Trust me, I hate
even
it
though
too,
it's a tragic, right. Exactly. Even though it's a tragic accident, the police still have to do a proper and thorough investigation just to be sure. And I am here. We have covered, I have heard many cases where the biggest thing is that we ask is like, can you just treat it like a murder from the beginning and do everything you can, like secure the crime scene, do the interviews, do all that you need to do. Even if you suspect it's an accident, even if you suspect it was self-inflicted, always treat it as a murder, because then the crime scene won't be contaminated. You're literally collecting everything and just taking you where the evidence leads you, not following a preconceived notion. Because if you follow a preconceived notion, you're leaving evidence out on the table that's not being collected.
So we can't ask for we can't ask for organization without, expecting or like appreciating when the protocol is put in place.
Yes.
So I appreciate it here.
This is protocol, and I'm very happy that they stuck with it. Now, after Tim walks the cops through everything, they did end up letting him go back and rejoin his daughter so that they could grieve together. Now, back at Sue's home, she was scared that Pastor Tim was at risk of committing suicide. So she ended up taking all of the weapons, all of the knives, and everything out of their house for his safety. I can understand that, especially if you're thinking this is an accident. Like, that's a lot of grief. But across town, officers show up at Janet's sister's house, Joan, and they're there to inform her of Janet's death. Now, Joan was devastated and could barely hold it together, but she picks up the phone and calls her brother Charles right away to let him know what happened. Now, the moment Charles hears that his sister is dead, he responds with, quote, "It was no accident," end quote.
What's going on behind the scenes?
Charles from minute one, something seemed off, and he was sure Janet's death was murder. He's like, no way. Now, remember, the cops are still investigating to make sure that they have crossed their T's and dotted their I's. So the first thing they do is they just run Tim's name through their system. And boy, were they shocked.
No, he's a pastor. Come on.
Come on. He's a great guy. What are you talking about?
Pastor? Okay.
If that was the case, we wouldn't have a podcast.
Tell me everything.
So apparently, Tim had 2 driver's licenses. Now, that's weird. I don't know. Do you have 2 driver's licenses?
No.
I don't have 2 driver's licenses. I have a couple driver's licenses, but they're from all different states. But I don't have 2 driver's licenses from the same state.
I have a bunch of expired ones that I keep because I don't know what to do with them. And then I have my active one.
They all have the same name on them, right?
All same name, same information.
Name. Yeah. Not for Timmy boy. He apparently had one under the name of Timothy Tillman, the one we know. And then he also had another one under Timothy Patrick McNally.
What is that?
Great question. That's what the cops are thinking. What the fuck is that? So as they dug deeper, they found that he had changed his name 4 months prior to Janet's death to Timothy Patrick McNally. And then only 6 days prior to her death, he changes it back to Timothy Tillman.
What is the point? What?
Great question. But it seemed just as odd to them as it seems odd to us.
To buy a gun.
And
Sorry.
Okay, that's a good, I'm just going to tell you now, you're wrong. But
okay.
I didn't think about that. But that is a good guess.
Because you do.
But you're right.
I mean, I'm assuming in the early 2000s, you also had to have an ID to get a gun.
Yeah.
What do I know?
But no, that's not what he used it for. But this becomes red flag number 1 in this case for investigators. Now, a day or so pass and Janet's family arrive at Sue's home to find out more about what happened to their sister. So when they come in, the church members said that, oh boy, you could feel that tension. It was thick and growing thicker by the minute. Tim tried to greet Charles. He reached out his hand. He was trying to offer a handshake. And Charles, the brother, that motherfucker, he just crossed his hands and he just said, no.
He said, I'd rather touch my pits than you.
I would rather touch the guy from the Kirtland Colts nasty pile of shit than you.
Why you gotta take us back there? I had moved on.
I'm sorry. I will never get over that. It will
I'd rather
scar me
sit naked on
forever.
a hot grill.
I would rather fuck a cactus than shake your hand, sir. Yeah, he said, no, I'm not going to shake your hand until we figure out what happened. I'm going to hold off on that. And so Tim knew right away they suspected him. And so he explains everything, and he's constantly repeating himself that he loved Janet. He would never do anything to hurt her. She was the light of his world and blah, 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 blah. Okay. But after Janet's family leaves, Tim tells the church members that Janet's family, they've always hated him. And that's because he took Janet away from their home church. And after he did that, the family just could not forgive him and they couldn't move on. And ever since then, they've held a grudge. So that's where all of this is coming from.
Okay.
Are you sure, Tim? Are you sure? So the next day, after Janet's family leaves, Janet's sister Joan writes a letter to the district attorney and tells them, hey, Janet was murdered. I know she was murdered. This was no accident, and I need your help looking into this case. Not too long after that, I don't know if it was days or just a couple weeks, the case was then assigned to the ABI, the Alabama Bureau of Investigation.
Oof.
Because the local police...
FBI.
Exactly. Because the local police, they straight up said, I don't think we have the resources to adequately investigate this.
They don't.
So, especially when they're like, he has 2 IDs. This is going to be overstretching us and our abilities and our resources. Let's just hand it over to the ABI. And I have to say, hand claps all the way around
Good
for
on
that
you.
one. Because I don't know how many times we've seen in cases where police stations, they hold on to a case just because there's fucking swinging dicks and
especially in southern
don't want to
states,
give it up.
Feels
yes. It's like, it is okay to ask for help. It's okay to be like, hey, my department doesn't have the resources. It is not about your ability. It is about the resources you have at your disposal, and you don't have many. And they handed it off, and I just want to give them a big old clap on the back for that one. So first thing that the ABI does is they sit down and they watch the interview tape of Tim Tillman the night that his wife died.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't take them long before they suspected that Tim's reactions in the video were all forced, and it seemed as if he was just acting the entire time. None of his responses or emotions seemed to be genuine to them, and one investigator compared it to, it's iconic, the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz.
Oh. No.
No, I'm not fucking kidding. He was 1 minute, he's blubbering and moaning just like the Cowardly Lion. But then the next minute, he looks up at the clock to try to check the time. He's like, you just accidentally murdered your wife.
And your daughters are devastated.
It's like, why would you be like, oh, yeah, what's happening? What the fuck? Doesn't make sense. So that struck them as odd. So the next thing they decided to do was to do a deeper background check. And it turned up some very interesting little tidbits on Timmy Boy. Apparently, Pastor Tim had a pretty checkered past. According to Janet's sister, Joan, Tim always had a girlfriend on the side, and he struggled to be faithful to his wife, Janet. The amazing, the beautiful, the kind.
The good Christian wife.
Good Christian wife, the one that is just over and beyond extending grace. Yeah, couldn't stay faithful to her. He was also known to frequent places that a Baptist pastor shouldn't, aka the strip club.
Wesley's booby trap.
Yeah, exactly. In 1995, Pastor Tim was spotted leaving a strip club and was fired from his ministry position in Florida. So yeah, he had preached in Florida, but he also had gotten fired. Then the family packed up and they moved to Minnesota. But he didn't have better luck there either, because after having an affair with another congregant, it came to light and he was also fired from his ministry position. Now for Janet, she had put up with his infidelity and she tried to work it out, not just for themselves and their marriage, but also for their kids. That is until the incident with the sex worker. So after Tim is fired from his church job, he starts working at the local jailhouse in Minnesota. Now, he likes to tell people that he was an actual police officer, but in reality, he just checked people in and out of the jail. That was it. He was a normal citizen working for the jailhouse, not anywhere close to an actual police officer. Well, one day at work, they had booked a sex worker, and when she was released, he offered to give her a ride home. Oh my God, you're being so nice to the sex worker. But according to her, instead of taking her home, he pulled over in a parking lot and forced her to have oral sex. Pastor Tim was then charged with the crime of sexual assault and was sentenced to 6 months in the same Minnesota jail he had worked at. This was the moment Janet broke. She was like, I've had it. It had all become too much for her, so she asked her sister Joan if she could live with her and come back to Alabama. Joan was happy to see Janet finally leave Tim, so she said yes and even got her a job at her office. Things were looking up for Janet and the girls. They were rebuilding their life. They were working hard, and Janet, she was fucking kicking ass at this single mom thing. But then one day, Tim called Joan and said that they had let him out of jail early and he wanted to surprise Janet. Now, I'm not sure how much Joan was involved in this, because it was very evident from day one that she didn't like Tim. And she even said later on that she was very disappointed that Tim and Janet ends up getting back together. Because, yeah, Tim apologizes and said this time things would be different. Oh my God, how many times have we heard that one? But he said from now on, he was going to be a loyal and godly husband. For Janet, she just had hope. She had hope that Tim was being honest, and so she took him back, and they began their lives together in Alabama. Now, the family started attending the Assemblies of God in Westover, where Tim eventually guest spoke from time to time. But then one Sunday, he guest preached at Vincent Revival, and like I said in the beginning, they loved him. They adored him. But when Janet found out that the church was possibly going to offer him the pastoral job, she confided in Joan that she secretly hoped it wouldn't happen. She knew that every time Tim got a pastoral or ministry job,
it always
step out of line, and then they'd be forced to uproot their lives and then move away. So she's like, can he not get this job? That'd be great. But alas, Tim was hired. Now, yes, they did do a background check on him. Or at least they tried to do a background check, because he was offered the job after the application was processed. But once he accepted the job, that's when they were supposed to do the background check. And they tried. But Tim always made up an excuse. He'd be like, I spilled milk on it. I lost the paper. I swear I turned that in. Constant excuses over and over again, because he knew that the moment that background check came back, he was fired. There was no way they were going to let him keep his job when he'd been fired from his previous two, and he had a charge of sexual assault against a sex worker. Come on. He was hoping I can just push them off as long as possible, and then eventually they'll just stop asking, and then no one will be the wiser. So all of this sounds suspicious, and for the investigators, there are plenty of red flags that are a-waving. But they still don't know the why. Why did he change his name? Why would he want Janet dead? They don't know this, so they just keep investigating. Meanwhile, Tim is receiving gifts, including money from his church members, since, I know. Because Janet was one of the big breadwinners. She always has been.
Oh, okay.
So they lost her income. And so all the congregants felt so bad for Tim, so they're slipping him some dollar bills to help him get through. But then, out of nowhere, Tim tells the elders that he wants to go away. and he wants to go on a pastoral retreat in Washington. Now,
random.
this is the first, right? This is the first moment that some of the congregation members were like, huh? And started to raise an eyebrow. Because between Alabama and Washington, there is a plethora of pastoral retreats to choose from. And there's a long distance between the two. So, like, why are you wanting to go so fucking far away for a pastoral retreat when you could choose any of them in between here and there? But the elders got together and they thought, okay, this is probably the best thing for Tim's mental health, to like step away, kind of get a refresher, get poured into, so he can come back and keep pouring into us. So they agreed to let him go and do this pastoral retreat. And wouldn't you know, investigators actually found a connection to Washington when they searched Tim's call history.
Oh, God. Who's in Washington?
Well, he had apparently been regularly calling a Washington number for some time now. And when they looked into it further, they found out that it belonged to a woman named Molly. Now, the reason that this number stood out to them was not only the frequency in which he was calling this number, but also the times of day he would make these calls, because they thought a pastor calling another woman at 11 p.m. at 11 p.m. at night, that just seemed a little bit odd and kind of out of your like normal pastoral business hours. Yeah. So he goes on this retreat. It's whatever. And he comes back. At this point, it's been about 2 months after Janet's death.
Oh my God.
And Tim, he tries to pick up his life and continue on living. And he is not aware that the
Sorry.
Exactly. He is not aware that the ABI is investigating him. He's not aware of this at all. He also is not aware that they realize he's changed his name. He feels like he's probably gotten away with it. But then one day, Tiffany, his daughter, calls Sue, one of the elders from the church, and is crying hysterically. Sue gets her to calm down, and Tiffany tells her that she found some letters or emails, it didn't specify which, I'm pretty sure it was emails though, between her father and a woman named Molly. Now, when she confronted her father about the letters, he confessed that he was attracted to Molly, but Tiffany got upset. She was like, excuse me? My mom has not even gotten cold yet, sir. Like, yeah, it hasn't even been 2 months. It's too soon. And it became an uproar. It became an argument. It became a huge thing. And Tiffany was very hurt. After she talks to Sue, she also phones up Joan and she tells Joan about this situation. This was the first time Joan is hearing anything about a woman named Molly. And after Joan gets off the phone with Tiffany, she calls up the police and she's like, hey,
no.
So apparently he's got a girlfriend named Molly.
Oh,
now,
shit.
Police are already aware about Molly. They know Molly. But this is the first time they're hearing about Molly from the public. They had figured it out in their background, but didn't think the public knew anything about Molly.
Yeah.
So after this, the congregation began to split. You had those that were diehard supporters of Pastor Tim, and then you had those that had begun to see their red flags, and they had their own little suspicions. So after further investigation, they discovered that Tim and Molly had been emailing for the past 10 years.
Oh my God.
Decade. A fucking decade.
Amid all the other affairs?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Did Janet
He's going
know?
to the strip club. Not about Molly. Not that we know.
I know she knew about the other girlfriends, but
she knew about all the other stuff. But
oh my God.
not the
Molly was the long. It's the long con. It's the long con.
The long con. When they looked into Molly, they found out that her father was in the military and realized that Tim must have decided to use that to build his whole new persona on. And with that came the creation of Timothy Patrick McNally.
I'm sorry. What a weird name. I don't know.
He claimed he was a lieutenant commander in the Navy. And he even went so far as to buy himself a military uniform. And he even had a name tag made that said McNally on it.
That is so disrespectful.
He has actual pictures of him in uniform with his name tag and everything. Literal pictures. He went full send into this delusional wannabe life of his. And so he had changed his name to Timothy Patrick McNally to be able to prove to Molly who he was saying he was.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Molly, you can't be this dense.
Yeah. Oh.
But also, you live far away, and it's the early 2000s anyway.
I want to hug Molly at one point in this and just be like,
girl,
I love you, but like also I want to give you a whack fuck off the top of your head.
Mm.
But here's the thing. Why did he change his name back?
Yes.
Why did he change it back to Timothy Tillman?
Can I make
why
another
did
guess?
he murder? Yeah, hold on. But why did he murder Janet? Why not just divorce her and move on with Molly? What's your guess?
Life insurance.
Okay.
Life insurance policy. I'm just thinking because obviously. So Janet, the beneficiary, the main one is probably going to be Timothy Tillman. So changing your name back would.
Great guesses.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Great guess.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you're wrong.
Damn.
They did not have a life insurance policy.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that I could find. They didn't have one.
Okay.
Here's the running theory is that.
Oh, it's not confirmed?
No, because he always pleaded his innocence.
Okay.
To this day.
Sure.
Yeah. The running theory is that divorce isn't and wasn't looked kindly upon amongst many Christian denominations.
No, it's not.
And so that wasn't going to work for him. He couldn't just get a divorce.
Till death do us
especially
part.
A pastor who had an affair. He wanted to be able to maintain his pastoral position. He still wanted the praise. He still wanted to be admired and loved and be this leader. But he also wanted Molly. And the only way he was going to get that, while also not losing his kids, was a murder. But one that could be made to look like an accident. That way he could have his cake and he could eat it too.
What a stupid accident, though. Because that doesn't...
Right.
Some
people are fucking dumb, and sometimes it just works in our favor to catch them and put them in bars because he was fucking dumb. So yeah, after 6 months, they still hadn't been able to collect enough evidence to, press charges. So they decided, you know what? Fuck this. It's time to ruffle some goddamn feathers. And boy, did they. The investigators, they decided to go to the church and have a meeting with some of the church elders. And they laid it all out. They outed Tim in all his lies. Impersonating a naval officer. They showed the pictures.
Why were they
showed
allowing him to be in that position?
I don't think he was in this meeting at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. He was not in this meeting, and none of the elders knew any of this at this point.
Oh, okay.
This was the moment all the elders found out that he was impersonating a naval officer, his history of affairs, and his sexual assault charges with the sex worker in Minnesota. They still had not been able to do the background check. So they did not know any of this until the officers sat down and were like, okay,
this is who you hired.
Let me tell you, this is who you hired. Mm-hmm. Now the elders are sitting there stunned, fucking stunned. They're not sure what to make of all this information. But one thing's clear. They felt betrayed.
Yeah.
The youth pastor, I just have to say this because it just what the youth pastor of the church made the comment that he felt, quote, spiritually raped.
Okay, stop. Mm-mm.
Thank you. I was like, what the fuck did he just say?
You don't get to say that. No,
thank you.
You do not get to say that.
That gave me the fucking ick. And I was like, I have to talk about this because I was like, what the hell? What the hell?
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Uh-huh. He was so betrayed, he felt spiritually raped. I'm like,
okay.
Thank you. That rubbed me the wrong way. Again, this entire case and you're still saying stuff like that where it's like, I'm going to need you to sit the fuck down and really think about the words before they come out of your mouth.
Or just don't. Just don't talk.
Yeah.
Don't just, you know what? Stop thinking.
What's that thing on, the Beetlejuice does it? And he puts the sewing on her lips so she can't talk.
You want to wield that power?
Yeah.
Stop giving white men microphones.
Stop giving men microphones. Okay, here we go. So after this, Sue, one of the elders, said that she felt after that Tim was guilty. In his heart, he had murdered Janet. She knew it. There was no accident. In her mind, there was no way. So It's not really clear at this point whether the investigators asked them to not say anything to Tim, if Tim knew that they had found out about all the lies or what. But the congregation at this point becomes very unsettled. Many stated that the end of the sermons were no longer like energetic and uplifting, but instead every sermon, every church service, it was just full of somber people, somber emotions. It was weird. Everything started changing. But those who had stood by Tim for so long, now they just couldn't trust him. And all of this could have been happening like prior to them having this meeting and maybe a little bit after. I'm not really sure exactly the like legit time frame of this, but very quickly after that, Tim chooses to resign from his position as the pastor. And he says that it's because he wants to just move him and his girls back to Florida so they could be by his family. The church was like, deuces, motherfucker, you're a murderer. Get out of our church. Now, the ABI struggled with this, with him like leaving, but they were like, we have no evidence to really like hold him. So they have to let him go and they just have to continue on with their investigation. And I'm sure at this point, you know, it's been a good, like solid, probably 6 months or so. And Tim's like, I fucking got away with it.
Probably. I bet he feels safe. I mean, he felt safe enough to move.
Yeah. But then one day, Joan gets a call from a loan company and they're asking for Janet.
Sorry.
Now, Joan thinks this is odd because we all know Janet's dead. She's not with us anymore.
Oh, she can't come to the phone right now.
She can't come to the
Why?
phone.
Because she's dead.
She's dead. They informed her that there was a loan out under Janet's name, and they were looking for her because she was delinquent in her payments. Now, Joan was like, can I ask when this loan was taken out? Well, like, that was weird. And they were like, oh, yeah, it was taken out in January of 2006. Now, remember, Janet had died in October of 2005.
Yeah.
Just after Hurricane Katrina. So that math ain't mathin'. Come to find out, Tim had used Janet's name and her good credit to get a loan for $5,000.
You have yeed your last haw.
You have, my good sir. So this was just what the investigators needed. Now, they had hard evidence that Tim had committed a crime. So they went down to Florida and they decided they're going to interrogate him. Now, they knew going into this interrogation exactly how they wanted it to play out. Yes, he knew that he wanted to arrest Tim for fraud.
Mm-hmm.
But he also was hoping that through this interrogation, they would be able to get him to, give them some more information when it came to Janet's accident.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they're like, maybe we can, get him to talk more.
Yeah.
Because he's a talker.
Yeah.
And maybe he'll slip up. Maybe he'll fumble. Let's just see what we can get from this interrogation.
That's the thing about pastors. You give them any empty air, they're going to fill it with something.
A lot of somethings.
Which
lot.
is good news and bad news.
Yes.
No pun intended.
So they bring Tim in, and right off the bat, they ask about the forgery. Now, Tim's not dumb. He knows that the forgery crime, it's very provable. There's hard evidence. So he's like, I did it. He just confesses straight out. Yeah, I did it. He says that he wanted to buy his late wife a headstone, but he couldn't afford it. So he took out the loan in order to do it. Now, the investigators decide to play dumb. And they're like, oh my gosh, tell me more about this accident that took your wife's life. Because remember, he has no idea the ABI has been investigating him. He's been in the fucking dark on all of this. So Tim tells them about the accident, but they keep asking him questions. What do you mean? Can you explain that a little bit more? Wait, go over that again. Wait, how did that happen? And they just keep going and keep going. And he wanted Tim to feel as if Tim was in control of the situation, but because the investigators kept asking him questions and had him go over things multiple times, Tim ended up changing his story and telling multiple different versions of the accident throughout that one interrogation. One time he said the gun was at his hip, and the other time he said the gun was at his waist. In one version, he said that the gun hit the door frame, but then in another, he said the gun slipped and went off. Those, especially like the door frame or it slipping, like that's two different things.
These are rifles, right?
Shotguns.
Yeah.
It's a turkey shoot. It's a fucking shotgun.
Okay.
It's a fucking shotgun. It's a shotgun. These are the hardest guns to like make go off fucking randomly. Are you kidding me? So in this one interrogation, he had given 7 different ways that this situation had played out. So at this point, though, Tim is fully understanding that the investigators believe that he's committed murder and that there was no accident when it came to Janet's death. And he becomes angry. He loses it and he starts screaming. And he's like, I didn't do anything. I didn't kill her on purpose. I loved her. And he's just fucking losing it. Now, the investigator, he wants to try to calm things down. And he wants to pull the reins back in. So he changes directions and he starts to ask Tim about the name change. You will not believe what this motherfucker said. He said that his brother had an affair with Janet. When he found out about it, he was so upset that he didn't want to be a part of the Tillman family any longer. So he went and got his name changed to Timothy.
He realizes that he is the Tillman family.
Yes. But then they're like, but you changed it back. And he was like, yeah. A few months went by and I was like, you're being dumb. Change it back.
That's so much effort to be petty like that.
When I tell you this man is so fucking dumb. So dumb.
Just not a realistic thing to do, but okay, bud.
Now, during this entire interrogation, other cops are arriving at Molly's house.
Molly.
And they're trying to interview her. Now, when Molly finds out that Tim is not the man he's portrayed himself to be, she's devastated. She's crushed.
Yeah.
She's obliterated. She had no clue. She didn't even expect. She had no inkling that Tim had been lying. Now, I'm not exactly sure how they ended up meeting because they said they met in Washington, but from Molly's point of view, she said that they actually met at her parents' house in Mississippi first. And then I think they went to a pastoral retreat not that long after in Washington because that's where she resides. Yeah, that's probably what happened. Now, she was under the impression that Tim's wife had died in a tragic accident in the attic. The story that he told her was that Janet was in the attic and she was moving some fishing rods when one of them bumped into a shotgun and it fell over, went off, and shot her and she died.
Okay, still not all right.
I just want people to let's science this bitch. Shotgun is leaning against something. It falls, hits the ground, it goes off. Where is that bullet traveling?
Unless you're laying on the ground with your in the fetal position with your back to the gun. No way that makes sense.
Worst fucking case scenario is that you get shot in the foot and it gets amputated. And that's even improbable, but that's the worst case scenario that I can think of.
Sure, yeah.
Funnily enough, though, when they're interrogating her and interviewing her, they find out that Tim and Molly are supposed to be getting married that following weekend.
Stop.
Yes, they're supposed to be getting married, saying the I fucking do's, man. But Molly feels so betrayed. She's devastated. She ends up giving the cops everything. They're like, you want my wallet? You want my phone? You want my keys? You want my computer? Have it all. Take it all. And these cops end up relaying all of this information back to the investigators that are interrogating Tim. Now, Tim's investigators, they then ask him right then when he and Molly supposedly had gotten engaged because they're supposed to be getting married the next weekend. Without hesitating. I watched the clip. It's like, when did y'all want to get married? Or when were y'all engaged? Tim goes, when Hurricane Katrina came through. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Why were they doing the turkey shoot? That was a fundraiser for Hurricane Katrina. So he had been engaged to Molly 2 months prior to Janet's death.
There's your motive.
Again, I literally have it in my notes. This just screams motive for murder. But as the cops are pushing that theory within the interrogation, Tim's growing increasingly angry. It's flipping again. He's so angry at this point, he's beating his chest like a fucking gorilla. I didn't hurt her on purpose. He's fucking losing it. He's going manic, man. Now, unfortunately, though, again, they do not have enough hard evidence to be able to arrest him for Janet's murder, but they do have enough hard evidence to arrest that motherfucker for fraud, and they do.
Of course.
Tim was in jail for forgery for 6 months before he was able to make bond. In the meantime, they kept building the case for Janet's death. Now, this is that moment where I want to hug Molly and fucking slap her over the goddamn head at the same time, okay? Because I know for some of you, this next bit, it's going to make sense, and then for some of you, it's going to be shocking, okay? I get it, but I also don't get it, okay? As we know, Tim is a fucking talker, and he uses that in his favor when it comes to Molly. Like I said, Molly was devastated at first, and she couldn't believe that he'd lied about literally fucking everything. But he ends up telling her that the reason he was lying, I can't even fucking say this with a straight face.
Okay.
He said he was lying about everything because he was part of a secret mission with the military.
Stop. Immediately no. Immediately no.
He was part of a secret governmental agency.
Leave the state. That's... Cut the hair off, dry it out. That's it.
This was all part of his mission, okay? Top secret mission. I'm part of a top secret governmental agency. This is all part of it, babe. Just let me get through this mission and then everything will go back to normal. Everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's fine. She falls for it. I just can't. But it works. He fucking works. And after he makes bond for the forgery charges, he and Molly get married.
Yeah, I knew it.
I'm like, what the fuck? Molly! The investigators didn't interrogate Tim anymore because they wanted him to be under the impression that the investigators believed his version of the events. So they let it be.
Mm-hmm.
But for the next 5 months, while Tim and Molly were married and just living their life, they continued to build the case until they then presented the case to the Shelby County grand jury. After the grand jury heard all of the evidence presented by the investigators, they chose to indict Tim Tillman with the murder of his wife, Janet Tillman.
Sweet.
I know. Oh, it gets even better because after they got the indictment, the investigators flew to Florida to pick him up, and they went into his workplace and they told his boss why they were there. And the boss calls Tim in, and when Tim walks in, he sees the investigators and he's like acting all happy and chipper, and he's like, hey, even like reaches his hand out to shake him, and he's like, I know these guys, we work together. One of the investigators looks up and like looks him straight in the eyes and he says, no, you never worked with me. And then it's all silent, and then he looks at him and goes, Tim, you're under arrest for the murder of Janet Tillman.
Oh my God.
It takes that motherfucker in. Now, it was 2 more years before Tim Tillman went to trial. In the trial, the prosecution's evidence included all of the times that Tim changed his story during the interview, along with all of the different versions, the fact that he was having an affair, the fact that he was engaged to Molly for 2 months prior to Janet's death, and they even had a smoking fucking gun. That came through as a witness named Jimmy Abbott. So apparently Jimmy Abbott was the man that was in charge of the guns at the turkey shoot. After somebody would shoot, they'd bring the gun back to Jimmy to be inspected, and he would take apart the gun each and every time it was shot and made sure that there was no bullets, and this was just his proper procedure for safety. So he said that there was no way. He took the stand and he's like, there's no way that there was a bullet in that gun. If there was a bullet in that gun, after the turkey shoot, it was put there and loaded by Tim Tillman himself. There's no other way it could have been there. Because even though the gun jammed, he unjammed it. He took it apart. He took the bullet out of it. Also, another piece of evidence was actually to me, like the smoking gun of all smoking guns. It was the trajectory of the bullet through her body. They had proved there is no way that the gun was at his waist or his side that just accidentally fucking went off. Because the trajectory would have been the bullet hole in would have been low, and then the bullet hole out
like
would have been high. Yeah,
but it was straight through.
Straight through, and it was higher up, as if he was aiming at her. Now, not shocking to literally anyone, Timothy Tillman was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Okay, if you go look this case up, you might get some conflicting information. It's not conflicting if you know the backstory, okay? He went to trial for the forgery, and he went to trial for the whatever it's called, the murder of the whatever it's called. Jesus Christ, it's late. He went to jail for the forgery and for the murder of Janet Tillman at the same time, and he was found guilty and he was sentenced to life. But then he appealed multiple times, and one of the appeals he won. That appeal was that it was found wrong for them to do the trials at the same time, to lump the charges together. So he was granted a new trial for just Janet's murder.
Okay.
So in 2000, I think it was like 2011, 2012, something like that.
It was 2012.
Okay, because the original trial was 2008. So they have a new trial, same information, same evidence, same smoking gun, same witnesses, everything. He's found guilty. He gets sentenced to life in prison in 2012. So he was technically sentenced twice for the exact same crime because he had two trials. He was given two trials over it. But I'm like, really? You really thought that you were going to get a get out of jail free card the second time around? You're fucking dumb. So yeah. That is the tragic story of Janet Tillman's death and the floundering fuckhead that is Tim Tillman.
Damn.
Who's still alive and rotting away in an Alabama prison.
Yep.
And I hope he is having a horrible day today.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure
That
he
is
is.
all.
Rest in peace, Janet. So sorry. And I hope
Yes.
his girls are doing good. I hope that they're healthy and happy and healing.
Yes.
Because I know that's got to be a lot, losing both parents.
Don't go look them up. Or if you want to look them up, you can look them up.
Leave
Just don't
them
reach
alone.
out to them unless they have, started speaking out about this stuff themselves and give their own version. Then follow them and whatever. But don't, just let them be. Let them be. But I hope they're doing good. I hope the family, Joan and Charles and everything, I hope they're all trying their best to do the best they can after such a fucking tragedy. So,
Well,
yeah.
Are we ready for palate cleansers?
We are ready for palate. We are ready for palate cleansers.
Okay. Go first.
I have a funny one. Do you want to go first,
Okay.
you said?
No, you go first.
Okay, I have a funny and also embarrassing.
I want to hear it.
Oh my gosh. My neighbor was like, "You're going to say this on the palate cleanser, aren't you?" And she's already laughing. And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And okay, our last name's Bean, right?
Yeah.
So I have 3 baby Beans.
3 Bean.
And whenever I'm like picking them up from school after I've like subbed or when I've like subbed at their school, I walk into the, cafeteria where they're all sitting and I just yell really loud, "All right, Beaners, let's go." Do you know? I did not know that was racist.
I actually just learned that this past year, though. I also learned that, I don't want to say it.
Don't say it.
No. It's something about backs.
Oh, okay. That's the one I knew because that one's the worst one. And I'm like, I grew up in a pretty racist,
I don't
racist
understand
relatives.
why people created these, conjured up these names and
I don't know.
it's so unnecessary, so insulting. Stop.
I did not know. I only knew about the back one because my relative said that one growing up all the time because I have pretty racist relatives. So I knew about that one. I didn't realize there were more. Okay. And we were across the street at the party and I yell out, "Come on, Beaners, let's go." And they start laughing and they're like, "Oh, you call your kids that?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's just
We're
like
the beans.
we're beans."
Why don't you just say my 3-bean casserole, let's go? That's what I would say.
And then the way that they were like laughing, kind of uncomfortable, it was like some light bulb went off and I went, "I am missing something here, aren't I?" And she just looks at me and she goes, "That's what they call Mexicans." And I was like,
yeah. Matt.
It doesn't help. I have 3 neighbors who are like Spanish speaking only immigrants. And I'm like, I'm not racist. I love you guys.
This is how.
I'm so sorry.
This is like peak unfortunate privilege.
Yeah.
Because
yes,
we didn't know these terms because we never had to experience being called that or
no,
it didn't run in the same circles as us. So
and I'm uncultured.
We are learning and we are actively advocating against such harmful vocabulary. It's
I felt
disgusting.
so bad. Do you know how many times I've said that in public? Do you know how many
Lacey?
times I have said this in public in crowds?
That's
So many times.
I'm
So
surprised
if-
we haven't been canceled.
If we get canceled, you guys know it's because Lacey
Lacey doesn't know how to refer to her
fucking
kids.
white girl. I'm like, you're beanies. You're all beanies now.
Beanie Babies.
That-
Oh, that's
exactly.
cute.
I'm like, come on, beanies, let's go. That one's better. It even sounds cuter. So if you have ever heard me in public call my kids that,
She's deeply sorry.
I'm deeply sorry because I am stupid. My husband has never been around when I've said it because I've always done it like at school when we're like in big areas and like he's just never been around. And so I came home and I'm like, have you ever heard me call the kids that? And he was like, he started laughing. He's like, no. And I go, you knew it's racist. He goes, yeah. And I'm like, nobody ever told me this. But he said he was called that. Like him and his sister were called that growing up.
I mean,
And
it's not wrong necessarily, but like
but it's wrong.
we could, yeah, it's wrong. We could pick a different word. So
Beanies. I've changed it. It's beanies now. And I'm
everyone
sorry.
can make fun of
but-
Lacey now.
Yep. Dumb white girl. Here we go.
Okay, well, I
Anyways.
have a heartwarming. Literally.
Okay.
No.
Oh,
Kind of. So 8-year-old heart transplant patient craved pickles. So hospital chef taught her how to make them.
I love homemade pickles. Those
So
are my favorite things to make.
She's a 8-year-old girl awaiting a heart transplant at Boston Children's Hospital. Her name is Emerson.
Oh.
And she loves pickles, but she didn't know how they were made. So one of the chefs and program managers of the culinary services for the hospital, she was like, do you know how these are made? Do you want to know? And so she took time to teach, like to go to the patient's room and bring all the ingredients and like a bunch of different brine mixtures. So like dill, garlic, Kansas Italian dressing. They had. She brought cucumbers, but she said let's also pickle some onions or carrots and watermelon.
I love pickled anything.
So they did that, and after the first taste test, the duo decided to throw a pickle party and invited anyone in the hospital who wanted to come and try a bite. So they also made lemonade with pickle juice ice cubes to serve, and said it was the best the person, the chef, her name is Bryce. She said it was the best 2 hours of her life. And
that is the fucking cutest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Emerson's mom told Today that the hospital really goes the extra mile to try and make the children feel comfortable in the environment of the hospital because they live in the hospital.
They do.
The fact that they're so supportive of just knowing what the kids are interested in and like to do, and then going with the idea, they've normalized the experience for Emerson here at Children's Hospital. So she's, just living her best life. Pickling it up.
Oh my God.
Isn't that
Needs
good?
a heart transplant.
Good on
That
Children's
makes my heart.
Hospitals. Come on.
So good. Okay, I have one more story before we end.
Say
if
it.
you're okay with it.
Say it.
Okay, this is another funny one. You said
Ready.
heart transplant in a child, and this made me think of this. I was like,
Okay.
oh my God, I have to stop. I have to like really process through what I'm so excited about everything I'm learning in school.
Sure, yeah.
And my kids
God.
walked over while I was learning about the heart, and they were like, what's that? And it was an image of a heart and the veins and the arteries, and one of them was clogged.
Mm-hmm.
So I was excited to share with them, like when mommy goes into like, when I graduate and I go into a cath lab, like this is what I'm actually going to be working on. Like this is the problem we're going to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about stents and like putting them in a clogged artery and like why that artery, if it gets clogged, why that's so detrimental. And they were like, well, what if it's not fixed? And I'm like, you die. My poor little kindergartner, we're laying in bed last night and she goes, Mommy, what if that clogged thing happens to me in my heart? Will I die?
Baby.
I'm like, I'm so old, people. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry, honey. And so I explained, like, it only happens to old people. And she was like, so it's going to happen to you when you're older? And I'm like, it only happens like if you don't take care of your heart. And if you don't eat healthy or you don't exercise. And she was like, oh, she goes, I'm fine. I exercise.
It's true. She's got very mobile kids. Like they need leashes in public. Anyway,
I did that one time.
That's acceptable. That's
not ashamed.
It's permissible.
It is. All right, guys, that is the story of Timothy Tillman and his fucking twat of a face.
Oh, God.
Janet, we love you. And I'm sorry. I hope you're having a better afterlife than you had here on Earth.
Yes,
if that's the case,
please.
We hope you guys enjoyed it. Anyways, we'll see you guys back next week for another case.
And with that, stay safe, stay skeptical,
and steer clear of the cultish carousel.
Bye. Also, heathens, if you're enjoying our show, please remember to subscribe, leave us a review wherever you're listening. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd also love for you to join our Patreon community. You can get access to the Potty Podcast. It's $5 per month. Super cheap. And you can see Lacey and I shoot the shit. And you can talk to us on a more personal level. Deadly Faith is brought to you by Choircast Network. It's produced by Lacey Bean and Lola Robbins, and audio engineered by Eric Howell. Thanks for listening.